CTE. Sounds like someone with CTE would say something.
Just out of any sport, even more than football, for a professional wrestler to say, I don't know, CTE sounds fake, is bonkers. They all have fucking CTE. Then this was apparently, it's part of this new Netflix documentary about Vince McMahon. That
I haven't seen it yet.
So a lot of people are like, oh, but like, people are like, well, Netflix bought the rights to broadcast Raw. So they're obviously going to like acknowledge everything that's wrong, but they're not going to cover the really fucked up parts of it because now they're in business with WWE. Anyway, they did a whole part on Chris Benoit, who annihilated his family and when they autopsied him, his brain was like the most fucking CTE'd brain they'd ever seen. And Stone Cold's just like, it's very strange. Maybe he just misspoke here, but he's just like, yeah, I mean, I had to stop wrestling because I kept hitting my head so much. But also, like, a lot of these guys, they're hitting their head so much that, like, that's like a you problem. You're not wrestling correctly. Like, you're doing a bad job out there. But anyway, CT, I don't fuck with that. I don't believe in it.
This sucks because he is one of, like, seems like a really good dude.
Yeah.
Has a pretty successful podcast, seems to be well liked. So this is a rare strike against him.
Yeah.
His like Instagram feed is just him feeding his chickens and playing with his cats.
He seems like, in terms of, iconic pro wrestlers, he's pretty all right compared to like, Hulk Hogan. But just very odd. Yeah, CT. No, Chris Benoit, he killed his wife and 7-year-old son because he just didn't like him. That's why he did it. Argentina and Venezuela issue arrest warrants for each other's leaders.
Cool.
This is a cool escalation because, like, both of these countries, like Argentina is this test case of like libertarianism, and
it's failing,
and
horribly.
it's failing absolutely miserably. Another stone cold lock from Elon Musk, who was like,
big things coming
for Argentina. Meanwhile, up in Venezuela, it's like the opposite. It's like the most socialist country in South America, and they obviously have a lot of problems of their own. Although a lot of them probably stem from the fact that they have U.S. sanctions that makes it much harder to succeed.
Yeah.
But they're going at it. There's these two failing countries they're going to arrest each other if they see each other. It's on site.
Yeah. Portland mayoral candidate addresses past of 150 parking and driving infractions. Well, not so easy to find a mayor who doesn't suck shit, does it?
I don't know.
Timeless headline.
I don't know if this woman's going to win, but they're like, okay, so can we talk about the fact that you have 150 tickets? She's like, yeah, I know. It was that's the past. That was then, this is now.
I have friends who I have no idea how they can afford to live because of how many parking tickets they get.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived in certain neighborhoods of the city, worked in certain neighborhoods of the city where there were points where I was getting like one ticket a month, and it drove me fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Oh, I got an embarrassing story. I went to the movies the other night to see Beetlejuice, which was fine. It was a great movie. I liked it. But they have, you use an app now. You got to put in the...
oh, yeah. Some of those lots.
I went with a friend, and I was like, I'll pay for the parking. And I put in the person next to them. It was 2 white cars that looked exactly the same. So I paid for someone else's parking for like 4 hours. It came back, and there was a parking ticket.
Yeah, that's funny.
That is my fault, obviously, but it's just like, if it was just the machine...
Hey, you paid it forward at least.
That person probably left immediately.
You paid it forward, but you didn't pay it here.
Yeah. Well, I learned my lesson.
Beetlejuice. Caffeinated ramen in a squeeze tube for one-handed slurping while video gaming. That's the headline. It's not a sentence. It's just a description of what it is.
Gamer fuel.
I think it's called like Boom Juice or something like that. No, that's not what it is. But
is this a Mr. Beast, KSI, Logan Paul type thing?
This is a Japan thing.
Oh, okay.
They take their gaming very seriously over there.
And their masturbation.
It looks like astronaut food. It's in like a metallic pouch, and
one-handed gaming. We need it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Mark Robinson will love it. It's disgusting. And not only is it ramen in a fucking tube that you suck out like a fucking Go-Gurt.
Yeah.
It's got caffeine in it, so
Great.
you can keep on gaming.
Goon all night.
You can go all night.
Mark Robinson needs to release the pizza in a tube.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can have pizza at any time.
You can already eat pizza with one hand, though.
Yeah, but it'd be.
I guess you can already eat ramen with one hand. It's just you have to like look at it. You got to take your eyes off the screen.
Whether that's a game or something else is up to you.
But pizza in a tube, I mean, I'd give it a shot.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
all the ingredients together taste good anyway.
They do.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all Italian food.
It's got all the ingredients you need. It's got tomatoes, very healthy. It's got,
so healthy.
It's got
protein.
It's got protein. It's got bread.
Yeah, electrolytes. Lots of electrolytes.
It's got a lot of electrolytes.
So many electrolytes.
It's got dairy if you're into that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the full balanced meal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly nothing wrong with
all it needs is a little bit of caffeine.
No, certainly nothing wrong with pizza in the morning, pizza in the evening, pizza at supper time. When you got pizza in a tube, you can jack off anytime.
Mouse crawling out of meal forces plane to make early landing.
What? So what? So what?
I mean,
landing the plane early for it? I mean, it's disgusting. But
I guess they have rules. They can't have rodents on planes because they chew through the wires and they can have very bad consequences.
Okay, but like, sure, whatever.
It's the rules. Rules are rules. I'm more freaked out by just the idea of like they're passing out food, and nowadays they often come in these like takeout boxes. You open it up, and a fucking mouse jumps out, and you can't run. You're stuck in your seat.
Yeah. Well,
and it's just running around on the ground.
That's the thing is, it's
freaking out the whole plane.
Even this shit's mass produced now, so it's just a mouse to plant fucking jumped in there or something.
Yeah. God, there's a mouse story. Someone got a loaf of bread that just had a mouse encased in it, like.
By the way, the Eric Adams thing, the vinegar, and it was a trap that like he had backed, and it was filled with, it was like alcohol and vinegar or something, and so it drew the rats in, but then it would drown them. It would drown them all together, so it was this like rat soup after that was done with them. Man hates rats.
But speaking of which, rat birth control could soon roll out in New York City.
Hey, good.
Yeah,
legacy assured for Eric Adams.
I mean, if he does one thing that people can all agree on, it's the rat problem. This is good. He got a little poison happening those first couple of years.
Yeah.
And there was an owl, famous owl in Central Park, that died because it ate some fucking rat poison.
No, it got hit by a city bike. So I was birding in Central Park.
So yeah, they're like, well, if that famous owl got killed by rat poison, it's probably a much bigger problem where birds are eating rat poison. So maybe we should use birth control that only really works on rats.
Sure.
And and the great thing is this gives the female rats career opportunities. They don't just have to be moms now. Mm-hmm. They can forge their own path.
Yeah, get a little briefcase.
Yeah.
Go down and get
smash that rat ceiling.
Do you think RFK Jr. ever texted Olivia Nuzzi, let me see those hooters? Young big bird guy.
I don't want to think about any of that.
What a great set of texts. Oh. God.
We all sided her, but she saw him come. When we first reported on it, they're like, all the jokes about what it sounds like when RFK Jr. comes, like, unfortunately, that doesn't apply here. But they actually they did have like full-on phone sex. She saw his O face. She heard it.
And still is like, I love this man.
That's the sound of a man.
Yeah. Why an Alaska island is using peanut butter and black lights to find a rat that might not exist. A lot of rat news.
It's they're checking every doghouse, hen house, and whorehouse for this one rat because this island doesn't have rats.
Oh, yeah.
There's like fucking 100 people that live on this island.
I know a guy.
One person was sitting on their porch one day and saw like a shape in the distance. They're like, I think that might have been a rat. And they started talking about it, and the authorities got wind of it, and they're like, if they did see a rat, like it's code red. We got to stop this rat because once the rats move in, they breed like crazy. They outbreed all the wild birds. Take all the food. The bird population collapses. And they have successfully eradicated rats on like a number of these islands. But in this case, they don't even know, they have no confirmation that a rat is even there. It could have been fucking anything.
Well, it's good that they're on top of it.
I'd say so. It's probably the most exciting thing that's happened on this Alaskan island in a very long time.
The new season of True Detective.
Yeah.
We got a rat to find. Not the kind you're thinking about, the animal rat.
It is funny that Eric Adams hates rats so much when someone must have ratted him out.
Yeah, that's why
He was
the rat
ratted
is
out.
funny.
Yeah. Someone
Gave him a
ratted
little
out Eric Adams.
Yeah.
And that's why he hates rats, both human and rodents.
When I started as mayor, I said I was going to eradicate all the rats, and I meant it. All the rats.
Rats of all kinds. First polar bear spotted in Iceland since 2016 is shot dead by people.
That was a sad story from the beginning, too, because it floated there because of climate change.
Yeah, it was on a fucking iceberg. It's like floating freely in the sea, and it's like, all right, where am I? I'm gonna keep on doing bear stuff. And yeah, I see both sides of the story. Apparently, the public in Iceland is furious because they're polar bears and they're not in great shape. And the government's just like, yeah, it would cost too much money to like capture it and transport it to Greenland. And also, polar bears are like the most dangerous animal on Earth.
Yeah.
They will. This bear will fucking kill people. So we're just gonna shoot it.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's your first and last bear in a very long time.
Well, Chinese zoo admits to using dogs as fake pandas after one caught barking.
Dead giveaway. Pandas don't bark. Ah, you almost had me. I was getting a little bit skeptical when the panda was sitting there panting with a big old tongue out and wagging its tail.
Doing a little paw thing, asking for treats.
Yeah. But I was like, hey, I've never seen a panda before. Maybe that's what they do. But then it started barking, and I was like, wait a second. Hey, Siri, do pandas bark? Sorry, folks.
Yeah, you really ruined it for everyone.
But, yeah. The crazy thing is, I feel like we see this exact headline at least once a
They
year.
keep doing it.
The Chinese zoos. I mean, the problem is...
This has to be like a local zoo or something.
I don't know. But it's always Chinese zoos. And I think part of it might be... I mean, if it is a zoo that does have pandas, the problem with pandas is... I've been to zoos with pandas multiple times, and I've still never seen a panda. Because they're very shy animals. And they don't come out. So like, there's a panda, and you're like, cool, big enclosure full of, like, bamboo. Where is it?
Get out of here,
They
panda.
deserve to go extinct. Fuck these animals.
No, they're very beautiful. They deserve to. And we have a thing in place. It's the only thing keeping the world from killing itself is the panda diplomacy.
It is, honestly, it's good.
This is the sacrifice that Chinese zoos have to make so that pandas can be shipped around the world.
Yeah, it's true. It's a
Yeah.
small price to pay for world peace.
All right, well, if for some reason you didn't get all the Eric Adams references on today's episode, you should check out News Dump. It'll come up in a second. But in the meantime, please like the video, leave a comment, talk about what
Hype the video.
Hype the video, that button's there. Who knows? Make sure you're subscribed. Leave a join, leave a thanks, leave whatever you want. Leave your cares at the door and watch our other videos over here. We got Eric Adams getting fucking doing the range today now, so officially he has been captured.
He is going away from home.
And unless he goes away to Turkey, which hey, that might happen too. Or Israel. We also have bad news for bad dudes over there. Check both of those out, and we'll be back next week.
Bye-bye.
Would you believe me if I told you that I'm a theatre kid? Water is wet. But yeah, I did a lot of plays at university, including one about abortion. And we did a little show at our local Waterstones, and it was protested by pro-lifers. And we were just completely gobsmacked that they would care about university students doing a frankly not very good show about abortion. But they did. They bigoted, they came with signs, they were praying outside. It was a hoot. And that was my first proper in-person recent exposure to pro-life campaigners in England. Oh, and we kept the sign. But yeah, growing up in mostly Britain, I'd say that my exposure to pro-life folks was being fairly limited. When media coverage highlighted that there was a pro-life society or club at the University of Exeter, there was mass outrage, and some even calling for the society to be banned or random-looking women feeling unsafe on campus. However, if you were to go on a US campus, it would be a given that you'd bump into some pro-life folks, and banning such a club would be unthinkable. That being said, what if I were to tell you that support for the pro-life movement in the UK isn't as rare as you might think, and perhaps that it's been hidden in plain sight?
We got a Beyonce fan. She's saying you're irreplaceable. To the left, to the left. In the closet, because I can't come out with these.
My name is Tara Mooney, and this is the only channel on YouTube where all videos are written and produced by a cat. She couldn't be in the video today because she's actually with a friend who's in labour with twins, and half twins are super rare, so I'm sure you understand why she couldn't be in the video today. But if you like and subscribe, she might appear in the next one.
Hi, dog. Hi, dog. What's your opinions on the subject?
I deserve compensation. Oh, hey! On a serious note, street interviews require a lot of equipment. And you know what can help you get things on your wish list for the best price? VPNs. And mine is Surfshark VPN. If you're living under a rock and you're unaware, a VPN encrypts your online data and helps secure your personal information when you use it on free public Wi-Fi. Let's say you're shopping online for a wireless microphone. You don't want websites to show you a price based on your location, so you can turn on Surfshark VPN and get the best deals when shopping online. And let's say you're logging onto your online banking in a public place, like a march or church. You don't want hackers getting into your banking. And of course, my absolute favorite feature of Surfshark is the location changing feature, as Surfshark has 3,200 plus servers in 100 countries. This enables you to unblock content libraries in other locations, and you can unlock the full Netflix library. Like how Mean Girls isn't on UK Netflix. Why do you hate the British? Actually, there are reasons, never mind. So if you want to expand your Netflix catalog and keep your data safe, download Surfshark today and use the coupon Mooney for an extra 4 months free. Make sure to check it out if you're interested. It really helps out the channel, means I can cover spicy topics like this and still pay people, buy my pets food and toys. So I appreciate it. And thank you, Surfshark, for sponsoring. Let's just make something clear. There is currently no legal right to have an abortion in the UK. It is available de facto, but in fact, abortion is illegal in the UK, with certain exceptions. The vast majority of abortions are carried out under a liberal interpretation of the abortion rule that allows women to have an abortion if it would have an adverse impact on their mental health. Essentially, abortions across England, Wales, and Scotland continue to be regulated by the 1967 Abortion Act. So this means that abortions can be carried out legally up to 24 weeks, must be approved by 2 independent doctors, and performed only in an NHS hospital or a place approved by the Secretary of State. Abortions not pursued under these strict rules may be treated as a criminal offence. In fact, some are, but I'll get to that later. That being said, support for abortion is at an all-time high in Britain. According to a 2023 poll, on the basic question of whether or not abortion should be allowed, 87% of Britons say that it should, compared to only 6% who say that it should not. The support has steadily increased over the past few decades. 47% of those who took part in a World Values survey believed the procedure to be justified, when it was at 14% in 1981. My analysis of the numeric differences between these polls is in the wording. Describing something as justified is different to saying it should be allowed. There are people who might not like abortion and choose it for themselves, but believe that it should still be accessible to the public. And those would be the people who are something in between, which is why you see nearly half of Britons saying that the 24-week limit is just about right, but a quarter thinking that it is too late. This tends to be women who are over 40. I would argue that the pro-life versus pro-choice stance is more of a spectrum in the UK, which is why super pro-life people who want to outlaw and criminalise abortion come in smaller numbers and are less vocal than somewhere like the USA. The majority of people in Britain think that women who break these current guidelines shouldn't be prosecuted, even those who want to pull back some of the current laws. So, who the hell are the people going to the march? The March for Life is an annual rally established in 1974 and is a march against the legality of abortion. It's held in Washington, D.C. around the anniversary of the former Roe v. Wade, and it's organised by the March for Life Education and Defence Fund. Trump spoke at the rally in 2020, the first president to do so. This is an American-bred event, but it has worldwide editions. Mr. Worldwide. Locations have included Ottawa, Prague, Rome, Lima, Lisbon, Zagreb, Paris, and many more, but also Birmingham and London, United Kingdom. This year's March for Life was its 10th anniversary, with crowds exceeding 8,000 showing up for the theme, Abortion Isn't Healthcare. Sorry, excuse me a minute, I'm just going to get a jumper, I'm a bit chilly. So compare this to the turnout in 2018, which was half that size. So if the British general public aren't becoming more pro-life, why the increase? It seems to be a mixture of factors. More money for marketing the event, foreshadowing, and of course, Roe v. Wade being overturned, emboldening pro-life groups to be more vocal globally. So who makes up the crowd? There are youth groups, church groups, families with their toddlers decked out in merch, the clergy, and me. Wait. Hold up. I mean as press. I went for journalism. I went in the year of 2022 and again in 2023. The purpose of the visit was for research for a video that I have uploaded. I've been saying I'm going to make it for years, and it's on pro-life feminists or the progressive pro-lifers. I still haven't made this video because if I want to cover a serious topic and I feel like I can't cover it perfectly, then I just won't make the video. But I have come up with a nifty solution. This will be the first installment of a series on the pro-life movement, with the climactic video being an essay on pro-life feminists or progressive pro-lifers. So anyways, I went to the march to find women to speak to about whether you can be pro-life and a feminist or if it's an oxymoron. And men talked to me, unsolicited. They kept talking to me.
Personally, I have a couple of ex-girlfriends who've had abortions, and I've just seen that over their life, it's deadened them. It's kind of, they convince themselves that they're happy, but they're clearly deeply lonely and unhappy, and it's something they've not been able to get over. And that's something that personally has affected me as well.
Catholicism isn't the state religion in the UK. It is, believe it or not, the Church of England.
That is camp. The Catholics are so camp.
So this march was the highest population density of priests I had ever seen with my own eyes. And there were Catholics coming out of the wazoo.
Literally, lock up your kid.
What are they singing?
It's the rosary in Latin.
Oh, thank you. It's the rosary in Latin.
Now, here's the setup of the event. In the morning, there's an indoor conference with stalls and talks from experts. And this year's theme was abortion is not healthcare. I'm not going to put the jumper back on because I'm too warm, but remember that jumper I just wore? So this year they had healthcare professionals do panels and...
Is it medically necessary to have an abortion?
Certainly not. I mean, we have been proof to that in Ireland.
Savita Halapanova was a dentist of Indian origin living in Ireland who died from sepsis after her request for abortion after a prolonged miscarriage was denied on legal grounds. Rest in peace.
We do recognise that complications can occur in pregnancy and sometimes emergency situations do arise, but it's important to realise the vast majority of these arrive well into the third trimester, where the treatment is not abortion, it's emergency delivery.
So the way they dance around this is they say it isn't medically necessary because we're just not going to call a late-term abortion. If this is considered a medical platform, then I should get to host a panel saying why my tummy hurts and so does yours, and host it with hot girls who have IBS. This event is going to happen Sunday, 5th of October, 2031. Be there. So then the march happens, you end up in Parliament Square, and there's a stage for speeches and prayer and remembrance. And credit where credit's due, they make this event marketable. They offer to send you out flyers, they provide a map to find a group to travel with, there's a page with slogans for signs if you aren't witty enough to think of one on your own, and I just need to say, I could not carry one of these signs. Not just because I disagree with the content, but because it feel like cheating. If I'm going to hold up a sign, it's going to be a pun from my own brain, damn it. They even provide you with memes to share. I mean, they call them memes. It's a liberal interpretation of a meme. Art is subjective. Graphic design is their passion. The event is growing in attendance year on year, and I imagine if Trump is elected, people will feel more inclined to attend. And I don't think it's that there's a significant increase in people becoming pro-life in the UK, but that they feel more emboldened to be more vocal about it. So this minority will only get louder and louder and louder.
Today, you are marching not just for the baby, not just for the woman, not just for the family, but for future generations.
We will not stop until the fight for life of the innocent preborn human is guaranteed.
Stand up for what is true, despite the consequences.
Notice something peculiar. Do you notice a theme with the speakers? Do you smell that? It smells like freedom. Where are all these Americans coming from? America? So, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have as many pro-life campaigners and celebrities as, say, the US media.
Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, truly believe that this is a human being? This,
without a doubt.
without a doubt,
Yes.
this is a dolphin fetus.
So let me.
Without a doubt, a dolphin fetus is a human being. This is a human. But quite different.
So the UK's pro-life movement is importing them. The event itself is an American import. And you may have been wondering, who's paying for all this? So March for Life UK takes direct donations, but also relies on campaigning and attendance from other pro-life organisations. Isabel Vaughan Spruce is the director of UK March for Life and also leads the UK division of the US-based 40 Days for Life, a Texas-based group that specialises in training protesters and organising anti-abortion clinic demonstrations. The group also runs a university, an online programme where for $497, users can access training videos on recruiting fellow protesters and performing sidewalk counselling, obtain anti-abortion signs and materials, and receive coaching from the 40 Days for Life staff. The group now claims to operate more than 1,000 branches in 65 countries. Now, Spruce has been arrested multiple times for violating buffer zones outside of abortion clinics in the UK. Hold that thought. If you're American, you might be familiar with the Alliance Defending Freedom, a conservative American legal advocacy group. The UK branch has more than doubled its spending since 2020 and provided Spruce's legal counsel. They also paid for another British priest who got arrested for this, and he appeared on Fox News, so yeah. And the ADF has expanded its lobbying in the UK government by attending meetings with former Tory MP Fiona Bruce. Not Spruce, Bruce. And not Fiona Bruce, the journalist, but Fiona Bruce, the Conservative MP. In 2019, they paid for flights and other travel expenses for her to attend its youth conference, Arrête Academy in Vienna. That's a year she attempted to ban late-term abortions for specific fetal abnormalities. Academy alumni have gone on to work for Bruce's legal firm, and in September 2023, she took another donation to cover expenses from ADF International, this time worth £1,700. She's also spoken at March for Life. She's no longer in Parliament, so phew, but man, did they really try and get their grubby little mitts on UK government. As for the UK's branch of the Centre for Bioethical Reform, they launched a billboard campaign featuring graphic images in pro-choice Labour MP Stella Creasy's constituency. She wanted to expand the laws on abortion and has called for us to cement it in law. The group's small size means it does not have to report full accounts, but because its staff numbers have risen from 4 in 2017 to 12 in 2024, that suggests more moolah. So basically, do I have to become anti-abortion to get me an American sugar daddy? I'm by no means saying that the pro-life movement in the UK is being fully funded by Americans. You know, Right to Life UK is a leading anti-abortion charity who have increased spending on Facebook ads, like £117,000 in 2023, which is 10 times the amount they spent in 2020. But the influence of US funding is significant, and the already existing pro-life campaigners in the UK are being given a platform and a greater ability to spread their message. We're even seeing pregnancy crisis centres in the UK, including clinics operated by US organisation Stanton Healthcare. In 2018, a Times of London reporter visited one of these clinics, specifically a Belfast clinic. She recorded a conversation in which she was told that abortion would make her breasts fill with cancer and was warned you could get your womb perforated. You might be left sterile. A few years ago, I wouldn't have made this specific video. As I said at the top of this video, I'd been under the impression that the pro-life in the UK was unthreatening and inconsequential. But here's the thing. If political minorities are loud enough, they can get their way, especially with a little help from their friends. According to the ADF's publicly available tax data for 2020, the most recent year on file, the organisation claimed close to $10 million on overseas expenditures. In the fiscal year 2015 to 2016, the figure was just over $3 million. ADF declined to answer questions from The Guardian about its more recent overseas expenditures. They are on a mission. And bear in mind that access to abortion is not enshrined in UK law. So now is the time to cement that right de jure. 7 in 10 women support making the change, including 86% of women under 40, as do 71% of men. But just because the majority of the public share a view on something does not mean you should take those rights for granted. The majority of the US public disapproved of the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and well, look where we are. And with the UK law being as it currently is, people are being prosecuted for having abortions. These cases are thankfully rare, but they've been increasing. Between April 2014 and December 2021, at least 36 women were questioned by police over pregnancies that allegedly ended outside the timeframe outlined in the Abortion Act 1967. In 2021, a 15-year-old girl who experienced an unexpected stillbirth became part of a year-long criminal investigation, which was dropped after the coroner concluded that the pregnancy ended due to natural causes. And yes, the charges were dropped. She was put through that for a year. Decriminalise it. Pretty please. Phew. Well, that was heavy. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I am still in the process of writing the pro-life, feminist, progressive pro-life movement video essay. I initially said, I think in 2022 that I wanted to make it, and I even hired a researcher. So the material is there. I've just been scared to make it, but I am gonna make it now. I've decided. Life's too short. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Thank you for checking out Surfshark. It really helps me out checking out sponsors. It means I have the freedom to cover topics like this, to do more risky journalism, and to pay people who work for me. Such costs are also covered by my patrons, so thank you so much to them. If you're interested in seeing the full footage for the pro-life mark, it's on my Patreon. And that's everything. I hope you enjoyed this. Instead of a subscription pet shout out, I'm just gonna show you my gender fluid cat instead. I'll get back to it in the next video. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
In late November of 2023, Matt Rife sat down with the president of incels and said,
I want to make history.
But that's not exactly what this is. Unlike Debbie Ryan, Matt Rife is no trendsetter. His appearance on the Jordan Peterson podcast was nothing more than a prophetic fulfillment. Let me explain. 1 week before brandishing Jordan's couch, Matt starred in his first ever Netflix comedy special, Natural Selection. Now, as clumsy and as unfunny this special turned out to be, Matt actually put a lot of thought into it. He was tired of being considered a run-of-the-mill TikTok star, tired of women finding him attractive, and tired of not being taken seriously in the comedian world. And so he kind of set out to put the rumors to bed once and for all. He was going to purge his audience of women and seduce an entirely new demographic into his ranks. The bros! You didn't think I was gonna shotgun the streak again, do you? Because I learned my lesson the last time. The bros! To achieve his goal, Matt choreographed a number of edgy jokes for his Netflix special. He made fun of domestic violence, civil rights activists, and disabled people. And then, when everyone was nice and mad, he did it again. Natural Selection spawned think pieces, memes, and the green splatter of death on Rotten Tomatoes. Not only did his viewers find him corny and unoriginal, but many people speculated that his career was over before it even began. Obviously, this is not true. I'm sure he's doing great. But this is where the prophecy fulfillment comes in. Clearly, Matt is bothered by his cancellation. I say this because he's followed in the footsteps of every comedian before him whose egos were bruised by having flat jokes. In order to preserve his comic identity and stick it to the libs, Matt decided to further align himself with reactionary, right-wing personalities. Because who else is going to find him funny? Who else is going to let him remain unchallenged and uninteresting as an artist? Now, with all of that added context, let's go back to the beginning of this video. In late November of 2023, Matt Rife sat down with the president of incels and said, I want to make history. When asked by Jordan Peterson why he didn't apologize,
like a good boy,
Matt responded,
It's just comedy. I'm just doing what's funny to me.
super fair and honest and good. I guess the only thing I'm confused about is if you think your comedy is subjective, why can't I? Why can't any of your viewers who found you unfunny express their subjective opinion on your subjective comedy? What's with the Matt Rife revenge tour? For the first 8 or so minutes, Jordan and Matt spend their time bashing feminist men, aka the men who tended to find Matt's special unfunny. You see, in their eyes, these men are virtue signaling thugs who use feminism in order to get from poor, vulnerable women. Direct quotes, by the way. And so is this one.
Oh yeah, I saw one TikTok video who was like, I have a wife and I found this severely disrespectful. I was like, okay, you fuck. If you want to get more pussy outside of your wife, like chill out. You're already married, she already respects you.
Hey, funny guy! I got a joke for you! What smells rotten and puts people to sleep? Your act!
Men's feminism is so aberrant to Jordan and Matt. They seem to believe that the only reason a man would care about others is if he's getting something from them in return. Manhood in their eyes is a purely transactional existence. Keep that in mind. There's obviously a lot to be analyzed about Matt Rife, but I'm not here to talk about it. Instead, I want to shift our brief focus to the man on his left. This might be your first time meeting Dr. Jordan Peterson. God knows I wish it was mine. Peterson is a part of what's known as the intellectual dark web, a group of so-called academics who are locally anti-leftist, especially when it comes to higher education. Jordan rose to prominence after campaigning against Canada's Bill C-16, which seeks to protect gender expression/identity from discrimination. Peterson's main argument was that this bill fell under compelled speech, and that it would force him and others to use someone's correct pronouns. If someone refused to do so, Jordan argued, they would be sent to prison.
And I think the most egregious elements of the policies are that it requires compelled speech. The Ontario Human Rights Commission explicitly states that refusing to refer to a person by their self-identified name and proper personal pronoun, which is the pronouns that I was objecting to, can be interpreted as harassment. And so that's explicitly defined in the relevant policies. So I think that's appalling, first of all, because there hasn't been a piece of legislation that requires Canadians to utter a particular form of address that has particular ideological implications before, and I think that it's a line that we shouldn't cross. And then with regards to these human rights tribunals where all this stuff would be sorted out, it's like those places destroy your reputation and destroy you financially. And can they put you in jail? Well, it's a complicated argument in some sense, but I can tell you that if you refuse to pay the fines, that's the next step.
What is this, 1984? Well, no. The bill makes no mention of pronouns and simply adds gender identity/expression to a list of other groups that are already protected from discrimination. Groups including race, religion, and disability. Experts note that jail is also highly unlikely and that misuse of pronouns would not be used as sole evidence of discrimination or hate speech.
Bill C-16 adds gender identity and gender expression to provisions in the criminal code that define an identifiable group for the purposes of advocating genocide, the public incitement of hatred, and the willful promotion of hatred. So how might these provisions affect the use of pronouns? And do these provisions in any way criminalize the use or misuse of pronouns? Not even close. Now, hate speech provisions in the criminal code have a very, very high threshold. The Supreme Court of Canada has repeatedly defined hate speech as only including the most extreme forms of speech. The court has said over and over again, and I quote, it is, quote, the unusually strong and deep-felt emotions of vilification and detestation. The court has said it is not disdain, it is not dislike, it is not offense.
Ever since he started his campaign against Bill C-16, and ever since his failure to put a stop to it, Jordan Peterson has been crashing out. He became aligned with the likes of Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan, and his vocalized beliefs have become increasingly far-right. To the surprise of no one, Peterson denies all of this. He denies having an ideology. He denies aligning himself with right-wing and further right people.
I'm not saying those goddamn pronouns. And the reason I'm not saying them is because they're made up by left-wing ideologues. And I don't like left-wing ideology. I don't like ideology, period. He characterized myself and Stefan Molyneux, a well-known YouTube personality, as far-right. And I felt that that was inappropriate, let's say, to say the least. Dear Mr. Kovac, you called me a far-right figure in press. You don't have one iota of proof for that statement, and it is patently untrue. In the absence of a smoking pistol, is that grounds for a lawsuit for defamation of character? Inquiring minds want to know.
However, just about every tweet, every guest appearance, every sentence uttered by Peterson suggests otherwise. In fact, this right-wing reputation precedes Peterson so much that Olivia Wilde used him as the inspiration for Don't Worry Darling's main antagonist. Referring to him as a pseudo-intellectual hero of incels, Wilde implies that Jordan's content is dangerous to consume. And there's some merit to this. Jordan Peterson's disgust with feminism and his hatred for pronouns place him right at home in a well-documented space, one that has been accused of radicalizing young people and sending young men toward violent criminality. Today, we're talking about the manosphere. Getting to know Dr. Jordan Peterson was like spiraling down into a melatonin-induced fever dream. And not just because I was spending most of my time trying to figure out who his voice reminds me of, but this was actually my first time watching Jordan Peterson. I had heard about him in the alleys of Twitter and YouTube, Every image I saw of him, every clip that I tried to scroll quickly past, depicted him as this larger-than-life character. He was always wearing a three-piece suit. He goes by Dr. Peterson. His followers worship him as some stoic god. For a long time, he existed to me in this extremely vague shadow realm of thought. Someone I saw intermittently, yet never paid close attention to. If anything, I always mistook him for a Lana Del Rey music video reject. So to sit at the altar of his work, to finally listen to him speak and lay bare his beliefs, I was disappointed, extremely disappointed. Jordan Peterson lacks excitement. He lacks charisma. He's not as contained as everyone paints him. This is what a cult leader needs to remain unquestioned, but Peterson lacks it all. If this is your final boss, you are fucked. The rest of the manosphere reaches nowhere near the mystique of Jordan Peterson, nowhere near the godlike image that his followers have bestowed upon him. If I saw through him that easily, the rest of the manosphere doesn't stand a chance. So, will you take the blue pill and live a life of ignorance? Or will you take the red pill and wake up to reality? Let me set the scene for you. It's 2009. Party in the USA is leaking from every major speaker in the country to boost post-recession morale. Kanye West ignites a feud that would last a decade too long.
I'm gonna let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
And Michael Jackson inspires the most unhinged Nicki Minaj lyric in music history.
Like MJ Doctor, they killing me.
God damn it. Also in 2009, someone used the term manosphere for the first time ever. It came from a blogspot page named Ben and Jeff, who used this newly crafted circle of the internet to post about things they found interesting. That is, video games, sports, beer, the whole shebang. This early manosphere blog was aligned culturally with masculinity, but it didn't really last long. It killed over after just 10 posts, leaving behind only 9 followers. Who knows? Maybe they moved to Tumblr. When we talk about the manosphere, it feels like we're talking about something dangerously new, something that took us by surprise in 2017, held us hostage for a few years before being debunked by the very best video essayists.
Shout out my Gucci. Shout out my Gucci.
But Ben and Jeff's manosphere blog, however obsolete, tells us something different. It tells us that there has been a desire for such space for a very long time. Obviously, we don't know who ran this page, if they were even a man, if they align with modern manosphere politics. Hell, if they even know what the manosphere is today. But this blog reflects the same desire that the manosphere claims to fulfill. The desire for a meeting ground, a digital man cave, where one can gather with like-minded individuals to express grievances and frustration. Now, let's take a little second to do a little yes and exercise. The internet loves talking about things in terms of black and white, but that's not really the Shakespearean way. We have to be nuanced and honest about this topic, even if it feels unbearable. So, yes, the manosphere is a dangerous network that promotes and sustains misogyny, patriarchy, and just about every other discriminatory ism you can think of. And there's a reason why such a community has sustained itself for so long. Yes, the participants within this community are being radicalized into violent far-rightness, and they may have joined based on what they perceive is a valid reason. Keyword, they perceive. Not me. They. Despite being well explored, the manosphere is still complicated to map out. It doesn't just exist on one platform. It doesn't share the same roster. And it's broken up into various niches. How can you challenge something so scattered? How do you decide what is militant and organized discrimination and what's a random dude with a microphone? The manosphere is connected by shared politics and language. They tries pseudoscience and bioessentialism, which is just fancy talk for climate change isn't real, and double X chromosomes if you own a bank account. The manosphere is also defined by its endemic misogyny, racism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, and violence. Most scholars consider the manosphere to be a far-right pipeline. It continuously targets and indoctrinates young people into its ranks. Women are definitely members of the manosphere, which sounds a little oxymoronic, just as they are members of other far-right radicalized groups. But young men, especially, are considered the target audience. These men are often white, lower to middle class, and Western. But most importantly, a lot of those who join the manosphere are vulnerable. Now, vulnerability does not mean blameless or valid. Vulnerability means that a person is at risk or susceptible to something. In this case, that something is radicalization. The manosphere targets young, vulnerable people who are seeking connections and, more importantly, answers to their issues. Maybe their partner has broken up with them. Maybe they have never had sex before. Maybe they see a fast-changing world that is drastically different to what they were promised. In such men, the manosphere sees perfect soldiers for their ideology. And the men, in turn, see the manosphere as some sort of father figure, one that is committed to them and one that guides them. Within the manosphere, medicines have a choice to either take the red pill or the blue pill. The blue pill is essentially useless. If you take it, you remain blissfully ignorant, forever locked into the matrix. But the red pill is more exciting. By taking it, you agree to wake up to reality and realize that society is anti-male, anti-masculinity, and anti-you. Every system, every woman, every liberal, leftist, Coca-Cola, DEI is actively working against you. By watching someone like Jordan Peterson, you find yourself faced with this choice. Stay asleep or stay woke. And Jordan knows a lot about being woke, apparently.
Well, I didn't sleep that month. I didn't sleep for 25 days. I didn't sleep at all.
Joshua Thornburn studied two popular subreddits attached to the manosphere: Incel Exit and X Red Pill. They wanted to figure out what inspires a person to join such an ill-reputed group. The most common reason seemed to be vulnerability. People tended to join after facing a devastating breakup, after being cheated on, or after facing constant rejection. Most users tended to have low self-esteem to the point of getting black-pilled, meaning that their fate is to be unattractive and undateable for the rest of their lives. Young people, especially of high school age, are most likely to fall victim to manosphere radicalization. They're less likely to have life experience and, therefore, less likely to be critical of what they're consuming. The most interesting reason someone might join, however, has to do with gender. In my last video, I talked at length about ideal masculinity and how unobtainable it is for most men. Men are constantly fed contradictory and confusing ideas of what it means to be a man. Using role theory, we found that the standard of masculinity, aka patriarchal masculinity, is defined by chaos and anxiety. Anyone who tries to be the perfect representation of a man is likely to be pulled in 50 different directions and stretched thin. Even if they reach the standard, it's highly likely that they'll still be considered failures in one department or another. That is the very nature of patriarchy. As much as you might hope that I'm pulling all of this out of my ass, there is a precedent for this theory. Numerous people within Thornburn's study expressed an almost sort of dissonance, where they want to achieve patriarchal masculinity, but they notice that their real personalities and interests are sharply different from what they're expected to be. Even when reading the newsletter submissions from my subscribers in my last video, it became clear that men don't feel secure in their performance of gender, and often feel like they're 20 steps behind everyone else. So, in a broad sense, the patriarchy refers to the system that positions men over women. Men are considered dominant by the patriarchy. But if the patriarchy benefits men by making them superiors, then why are they so unhappy? I mean, if that was really the case, they would be the most successful, happiest people in the world. I know a man who's insecure and broke. Well, firstly, men do receive privileges from the patriarchy. There's the obvious ones that are associated with, say, the workplace, like the gender pay gap and the fact that women are more expected to sacrifice their career for children than men are. But there are also inconspicuous privileges that men don't really think about. While they are expected to be attractive by, masculine standards, they aren't socialized to view beauty, low weight, and bodily grooming as their sole purpose. Their capability and decision-making skills are not questioned as much as women's. Their sexual promiscuity or history is never put on trial like women's, and they're more likely to be represented in higher positions than women are. But just because someone's privileged doesn't mean all of their life's problems are suddenly solved, especially because there's potentially a bunch of other systems that may make their life harder. For instance, despite receiving patriarchal privilege, men can still be oppressed by, capitalism or classism. Men of color face systemic racism. Men can be exploited by the war machine. During their tenure in the military, they can become disabled and come home as decorated veterans only to be then discarded by the American government. They can become homeless and face increasingly violent anti-homeless laws and measures. And they can get discarded by the very system that favors them if they fail to meet its strict standards. Trans men, queer men, impoverished men, disabled men, any man who doesn't fit into the tiny, tiny box of patriarchal manhood is often bullied, beaten, emasculated, or in some cases killed, oftentimes by other men. Men are denied their full humanity by the patriarchy, even though it claims to love them. You might be thinking, okay, so men aren't able to reach perfect patriarchal masculinity. How is that a bad thing? No one should strive to be patriarchs. And yes, exactly. No one should want to or be able to embody patriarchal standards. But that doesn't fix the fact that men are still expected to. Gender is considered a social construct. It varies across communities and is influenced by society. Even so, gender still impacts how we are viewed and treated. A lot of people want to be affirmed in their gender, whether they're cis or trans. And because we have this desire, we often work towards aligning with our gender. We perform in certain ways to be read as our gender. PJ Burke and Lou Alexander consider identity to be a continuously operating, self-adjusting feedback loop. Individuals continuously adjust behavior to keep their reflected appraisals congruent with their identity standards or references. Men are told that the goal of their gender, the goal of their identity, is patriarchal masculinity. This is defined by hierarchical power, sexual obsession, isolation, brutalization, toughness, and misogyny. No one should strive for these things. But if men refuse to embody patriarchal masculinity, or if they fail to embody it, their entire purpose, existence, and self-esteem are in danger. This leads to role overload and role conflict, which in turn might lead someone to extremes in order to realign themselves with ideal standards. Take Matt Rife's actions, for instance. His insecurities are on display in much of his work. In order to realign himself with patriarchal masculinity, he designed an entire special around misogyny and dude bro comedy. Obviously, this was disgusting and wrong. I'm not campaigning for men to be able to embody patriarchal masculinity. Why would I do that? I'm trying to make sense of a complicated pattern. There's a very clear disconnect between a boy being born and a man who joins the manosphere. Somewhere in that disconnect, there's sometimes anger, confusion, anxiety, depression, grieved entitlement, and vulnerability. Sometimes, not always.
Sometimes.
Always?
Not always, no. Sometimes. That means sometimes.
The outlets for these emotions are not handled in a healthy or valid manner. Other people are faced with gender role overload and role conflict constantly, but don't join far-right groups or commit violent acts. There's really no room for excuses, but there is room for a much too long critical analysis of it. The manosphere is constantly referred to as a far-right pipeline, but really it's more like a pipeline to itself. You're hit in the face with violent racism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, and transphobia right in the gates. The community doesn't chew you up and spit you out towards more right-leaning groups. The manosphere just absorbs you into itself. Sarah B. considers the manosphere a form of grooming. And this makes sense. The very basics of grooming starts off with a predator choosing a vulnerable person, often a child. And said child may be isolated, lonely, and suffering from low self-esteem. The very same traits of those who are most likely to join the manosphere. A predator is able to pinpoint the issues of their victims, the things that make them easily seducible and compliant. Predators push against insecurities. They build what initially feels like a stable sense of trust, and all the while they slowly escalate the tension, pushing you further and further until you end up in a place you never anticipated going. But even as the violence mounts, even as you question your place within this hierarchy, you can't leave. They love you and trust you so much. They're the only person on earth who does. Why not fall in line with their every thought, command, and belief? Pipelines are inherently seductive. Without the power of seduction, they are not successful. But the manosphere feels different. It might as well be crack in the 80s because nothing has ever hit the tower of addiction so hard. Young people, not just men, who are feeling broken and confused and unlovable and alone, come into the manosphere with a burning question. Why is this happening to me? And the addictive nature of the community is that it pretends to answer in a way that both satisfies you and saves your feelings. It's not you that's the issue. It's women. It's different women. People of color. It's everyone else but you or me. If the manosphere was a contained universe and you could enter it by door, I would argue that the bouncer of that door is a pickup artist. Pickup artists are not a new digital phenomenon. Their popularity actually peaked in the 1970s as a part of the growing seduction industry. Men would host workshops, publish books, and even join study groups to help other men up their game. Just listen to this infamous passage of Eric Weber's 1970 book, How to Pick Up Girls. You're walking down the street, minding your own business, wondering how the hell you're going to meet the next payment on your car, and suddenly you spot a girl. The girl, someone so absolutely sexy, so downright delicious. You've just got to see more of her long, lean legs, her fine, rounded breasts, her high, firm behind. For an instant, you even consider looking. Yeah, this is page 1, by the way. Third paragraph. Weber, if the manosphere was a contained universe and you could enter it by door, I would argue that fine, rounded breasts, her high, firm behind. For an instant, you even consider rape. Yeah, this is page 1, by the way. Third full paragraph. Weber doesn't give you a chance to prepare for his terroristic misogyny. It just kind of hits you in the face. At first, this passage seems way more forward than today's pickup artists. I began my descent into this category by watching the infamous Fresh and Fit. You've probably heard of them. They are so controversial, so violently misogynistic, that their channel was demonetized within 3 short years. Not to mention the fact that this podcast cost one of them their job with Homeland Security.
Then I moved to Miami, started up the podcast, and they brought me in and they're like, hey, there's some controversial stuff on the internet. You gotta pick one, and then you're going the entrepreneur route.
Fresh and Fit began posting content in October of 2020. As if that year couldn't get any worse. Myron is one half of the team. Before entering the world of podcasts, he had a YouTube channel dedicated to fitness, hence the nickname Fit.
What's up, guys? Myron Gaines here from Unplugged Fitness. Thanks for tuning into the video. Today, we're going to talk about muscle hypertrophy.
And of course, before that, he was a Fed working in the drug and human smuggling sphere. That makes his undying support of, say, Andrew Tate, a Manosphere personality who's been charged with rape and human trafficking, all the more concerning. The other half, the least interesting half of Fresh and Fit, is this guy, Fresh Prince CEO. Who named you that? I mean, I know Shakespeare's kind of corny, but come on, man, I'm not calling you that. Let's say his name is Simon. Myron and Simon. Simon previously worked at AT&T, Chick-fil-A, and a website company that believed in women's empowerment. The irony just keeps getting bigger. But he ended up on YouTube, where he would post staged prank videos for his audience. The issue came when Myron met Simon. Their early videos focused on putting men on game, which is just dude bro podcaster talk for saying hello to a woman. They discussed which bars to go to in Miami. They shared tactical guides for sourcing girls at clubs. Yes, they used the word sourcing. And they even made a video co-hosted by a male star titled How to Perform in Bed. Myron and Simon would one day fuse to become the freakiest final boss in Manosphere history, but these early videos were just kind of plain. Don't get me wrong, their early videos are run-of-the-mill entitlement, misogyny, and creep shit. I really don't want to pretend stuff like this is normal because it's not, but it was something I was expecting. It was nothing as whiplash-inducing as Weber's book, for instance. And that's because it isn't as straightforward. In the beginning, Fresh and Fit constantly curbed their negative speech. They would say something atrocious like,
bro, you kick girls to the curb, immediately they don't want to give you sex.
But in the very same breath, they would add on an obligatory white flag.
A girl is under no obligation to give you sex, guys, obviously. You know, it's her body, her choice. But you know what? It's your attention, your choice too. You kick her out the curb, baby. You know what I'm saying?
It's like causing an injury and then personally applying a Band-Aid. It doesn't make what you said okay or right or helpful. In fact, it might piss me off more, but it creates plausible deniability. Their early work can't be accused of promoting violence or misogyny because they don't use forward enough language. This is intentional. It's like Fresh and Fit were trying to get people in the door to seduce them into their lifestyle before they decided to lock the doors and accelerate their propaganda. Fresh and Fit positioned dating as this extreme sport. In their minds, it's almost like women are a hard equation, or even a dangerous adventure game that you need bravery and wit to conquer. They end up using patriarchal language to reaffirm this belief. They argue that women only view men as providers. Whether that be providers of money, fun, or attention varies on the context. In Fresh and Fit's eyes, neither man nor woman desire deeper connections with each other. Men just want sex, and the women they want sex from just want money or attention. So, Fresh and Fit's guidance for men is to make more money and to be more alpha. Naturally, since men are doing their part of the equation, so to speak, women have to do their part by sleeping with these men. It's all very dehumanizing. Women are not considered people in the world of game so much as they are seen as wet vessels for pleasure. Even though Fresh and Fit spew out men's rights rhetoric, their lessons also dehumanize men. In their eyes, men are nothing more than stoic ATMs whose only goal should be self-pleasure. They're similar to Matt Rife in that way. He implies that men's only goal, only purpose, is to live transactional lives. The only time you, as a man, should build relationships or connect with other people is to get something out of them. Humans are social creatures. We thrive on feeling seen and seeing others. If men aren't allowed to do that, if they're made fun of for genuinely caring about women or their friends, what does that make men? Joshua Thornburn's study shines a light on how insidious this thinking is for people joining the manosphere. In their study, they reference the story of a 15-year-old boy who we'll call Cody. Cody began posting in manosphere Reddit threads about an issue he was having. He became enamored by pickup artistry and religiously watched videos within this niche. The issue is he was friends with a girl who he admired, a girl he cared deeply about, but a girl nonetheless. He would walk her home, protect her from creepy men, and would share deep and personal conversations with her. Now, Cody explains that he does have a crush on this girl, but he doesn't mind if she just wants to be friends. He genuinely respects her and values her presence. But that's not what the manosphere teaches. Women are romantic and sexual objects. They can't be friends or confidants.
I have no friends that are girls, bro. Either we're smashing or we're not. That's it. So
Facts, man. No free attention. Shout out to Alan Roger Curry, man. Like, if you're willing to sit there and not get sex from her, right, and be her friend, you're validating her heavy, like heavy. You're basically, what you're saying is your presence alone is good enough, and I will sit here and wait for you to give me sex. And the reality is this: guys that are good with women, alpha males, etc., they don't let women leverage sex against them in return for some kind of compliance. You know what I'm saying? Like
Cody wondered if he was doing something wrong by respecting this girl. This is how it starts. You start second-guessing your motives. You turn away from your brain, your heart, your moral compass, because someone else is telling you to do so. Imagine someone joining the manosphere at Cody's age or even younger. Imagine ingesting this content throughout your teenhood and well into your adulthood. What would your mindset be like? Would you still feel conflicted? Would you ask questions or seek reassurance? Or would you act without consideration? While watching a Fresh and Fit podcast episode, I saw a donation come on screen from a 23-year-old man. He stated that he began watching manosphere content at 17 and was thankful for all that it taught him. He's grateful to have been red-pilled during the most formative years of his life. There's no telling the havoc he has undergone or the havoc that he has inflicted upon others. It's really no wonder how Fresh and Fit became so popular. They fed the insatiable beast of the internet with clippable videos and unhinged takes. But through the cesspool of misogyny, they started to fashion themselves as activists. They were carrying the burden of those too weak to manage. They were the voice of the voiceless. In their eyes, they were simply standing up for men everywhere who were being taken advantage of by greedy women. They taught men how to fight back in the toxic game of love, except none of that is true. Fresh and Fit don't actually care about men, at least not the men outside of their direct vicinity. How can you claim to care about men when you peddle the very poison that got them sick in the first place? Fresh and Fit promote every ill of patriarchy. They suggest never getting close to another person. Every woman is meant to be held at arm's length, just close enough to use her body, but far away enough that you don't have to learn her mind. Every oppositional voice, no matter their gender, are enemies that deserve public lashings, effectively banning healthy communication and growth. They tell men to get richer, get fitter, be better men, real men, as if those standards aren't already causing anxiety across the masses. Some men are coming into the manosphere already insecure, already depressed, and already feeling like failures, only to be told by their quote-unquote heroes that they just need to try harder, work longer, miss their families more, grow more distant, more cold, more abrasive, more alone. And this isn't just something that I've noticed. The anonymous users in Joshua Thornburn's earlier study noted that participating within the manosphere made their self-esteem worse than it already was. They internalized the messages of these so-called experts and came to view themselves as unmasculine, ugly, out of shape, and not making enough money to consider themselves real men. But Fresh and Fit don't care. It's actually in their best interest to sell insecurities back to these men. It's what makes them the most money. Even though they're demonetized on YouTube, they still do frequent streams, and they draw in new members by doing so. Large chunks of their content is on a different platform entirely. And on top of that, they still receive an exorbitant amount of donations from their audience. As they've gotten more successful and more rich, Fresh and Fit have only advanced in their violent rhetoric. It's very clear now that they aren't doing this to better the lifestyles of men. They're doing this to make money, and they need to be even more reactionary, even more mind-numbing in their arguments in order to maintain that captivated, paying audience. Myron and Simon are no longer curbing their negative speech. They've gone full mask off, as the kids say. They're rude, aggressive, and terroristically misogynistic. They're not here to be fair, because as their fallen soldier Kevin Samuels once said,
Men don't care about fair. We conquer. It's winners and losers.
men don't care about fairness. We're conquerors. Yeah, they're conquering my nerves right about now. In one video, Fresh and Fit have an OnlyFans model as their guest. From what it seems, she isn't completely fluent in English and so doesn't understand a lot of the slang that Myron and Simon are using. When they ask her what her body count is, she kind of looks around like Adele.
What's my body count? What does that mean?
They consistently make fun of the way she speaks and even degrades her for having an OF.
What do you do for work?
OF.
She belongs to the street.
I'm just curious, like, who got you into the content? Was it just you doing it yourself, or someone said, hey, come on this platform?
I have some manager that helped me to figure out.
Mind you, they have an entire video on their page co-posted by a male porn star. Myron literally said in that video that
everyone would want to be focused on having sex for money.
Because you're chasing your dream, you're doing what you want to do. I mean, I think there's plenty of guys out there that would kill to do what you're doing, for money. But
of course, men aren't fair. They're conquerors. They're not people. They're conquerors. In another instance, Myron began berating his guests, calling them stupid and saying that women shouldn't have the right to vote.
the reason why no one tells women they're stupid is because they want to to them. But most of you guys are fucking stupid. I'm being very, very honest.
Party, you should die, and the other one can vote and like not die.
That's why you guys should vote, in my opinion.
Why?
Because you guys don't have any skin in the game.
His forwardness is so drastically different from their earlier videos that it's almost scary. Simon, too, has become more unhinged over the years. In the early videos, he was kind of quiet. And I think it might be a mix of Myron taking the lead in the conversation and Simon being kind of camera shy at the beginning. But in a recent live stream I watched, Simon was so rude that he reduced one guest to tears and caused another guest to leave the show entirely.
How did it feel when he ghosted you?
It still hurts.
W-Mans. All right.
Yo, what the fuck?
No, he's showing, man.
It's okay.
Oh.
Something else I've noticed is that Fresh and Fit have a habit of instilling weird, easily debunkable lies into their content. Which, you know, I'm not judging off rip. Me and misinformation go together real bad. But of course, when we look at the Manosphere's brand of misinformation, we have to consider the intent behind it. They're purposefully spewing discriminatory falsehoods with the sole aim of upholding supremacist systems. In other words, they're lying to maintain supremacy. For instance, Myron once said that if women were to lead, the world would be sent back to the Dark Ages. It's so funny to me when a man who believes in the domesticity of the feminine says that a woman cannot lead. Your ideal woman leads a household, arguably the most important sphere of our lives, the only sphere that actually matters. I mean, the budget, the children, the food, the cleanliness, your emotions. If you don't trust women so much, why do you want them to be in charge of your very livelihood? But Myron, for what it's worth, is not a premature finisher. It just keeps going. They also once said that women haven't invented it. Like, ever.
If we had women running the world, we'd be in the dark ages still. They don't invent anything. They don't create nothing.
Not only have women throughout history been instrumental in the discovery and invention of significant items in our daily lives, women are also credited with discovering things that the manosphere seems so obsessed with. They peddle bioessentialism, which, if I'm not mistaken, is dependent on the discovery of sex chromosomes. A woman discovered sex chromosomes. A woman's research was also instrumental in discovering DNA, fun fact. And funnily enough, it was a woman who invented Kevlar, which might be super important to Myron because, you know, Kevlar is used in bulletproof vests and other protective gear, which, if we take Myron's word for it, has probably saved his life while working as a Fed with Homeland Security. That is, before they made him choose between his career and a failing podcast. And he chose the podcast. Talk about poor intellect.
But most of you guys are fucking stupid. I'm being very, very honest.
I can go on and on about women's inventions and discoveries. Chocolate chip cookies, the dishwasher, the literal Earth's inner core. But it's actually no surprise that so many manospherian dudes don't know basic information and why they feel so comfortable making broad, wrong statements. I'd say use Google to sort it out, but maybe the manosphere doesn't get Wi-Fi. After all, it was the work of Heidi Lamar and George Antheil that made it possible for us to get Wi-Fi today. Woman. Oh, and Myron, when you drive to that hill that you're willing so bad to die on, and you get lost and need directions, you might want to pull out an old-fashioned map because Heidi's work also laid the foundation for modern GPSs. But anyways...
Okay, let's move on.
As time went on, Fresh and Fit became their own pipeline. They went from being the bouncer at the door of the manosphere to one of the extreme niches within it. They fit in right along with another prominent group of the manosphere, the men's rights activists. Let's refer to them as MRAs. Like pickup artists, MRAs didn't just sprout up with the internet. You can find them as early as the 1960s, parading down streets with signs and microphones. Some MRAs of this time intentionally aligned themselves with the ongoing second wave of feminism. They joined the feminist organizations and made it their mission to challenge patriarchal masculinity, which is good. An interconnected movement is a movement that succeeds. But the same issues that were plaguing feminism during these early waves began to splinter the men's movement. Intersectionality was a concept lost on most of the activists. For instance, a lot of Black feminists noted the oddity of Black men campaigning against racism and fighting for their rights as men, while simultaneously expecting Black women to remain inferior to them. Beyond just race, there were men within the movement who believed that feminism was ruining manhood and was oppressing men. Instead of aligning themselves with feminists to challenge the patriarchy, these men decided that true liberation would come from separatism. They needed a space away from the feminine, which was threatening to soften America.
Now what do you say if we form a new club and call it the He-Men Woman Haters Club?
Decades later, as the digital age took over, this rhetoric remained popular with MRAs. Today's MRAs believe that men are the true victims of systematic oppression. Not even just systematic oppression via the patriarchy. No, they believe that the woke, liberal, leftist, Coca-Cola, DEI feminists have taken all of the power for themselves, leaving men disaffected and alone. The evidence they provide for this is disproportionate military drafts, unfair monetary expectations, and the silencing of SA and DV victims who are men. Now, as the scholars say, let's be so fucking for real. This evidence seems valid, right? It seems justifiable. Men are more likely to be drafted into the military per history. They are expected to be breadwinners. And there are people who don't view men as victims of SA or DV or in general. However, MRAs are providing us half-truths. Their larger conspiracy argues that feminism is to blame for all of these things, whereas I would argue that patriarchy is obviously at fault. Let's break this down. starting with the war argument.
One party needs to die, and the other one can vote and like not die.
That's why you guys shouldn't vote, in my opinion.
Why?
Because you guys don't have any skin in the game. Men have to go into selective service, women don't.
A huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most people who do violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely?
In my last video, we discussed how men are taught to perform masculinity, especially in the West. This includes viewing themselves... What happened to the light? This includes viewing themselves as soldiers from a young age. They're given toy army men to play with in their youth. Their immediate heroes are often weapon-wielding violators who round up foreign bad guys. Even throughout history, companies have marketed guns to young boys as a way to become real men. On top of this, boys are socialized to believe in their own disposability. They're taught a confusing cocktail of rage, stoicism, and emotional disengagement. They're taught how to not get too close to anyone, almost as a way of preventing them from getting too attached to the world. And then, when they leave their youth and enter their early teens or early adulthood, they're primed by more nationalistic messages, telling them that good men die for their country. Good men join the army. Good men, true men, don't dodge the draft. Not only do these messages manifest under the patriarchy, which decides how gender should and will be performed, but it comes from other men. Men who are in power over you, over other men, and over most of us. It wasn't a feminist who created the selective service. And I can assure you that it wasn't a visionary feminist who believes in war and sends men off to die in it. It's a patriarchal person, a patriarchal leader, perhaps even a patriarchal country. The draft goes back to the early history of the United States. You know, when eagles were calling and tea was getting thrown into the harbor and indigenous people of the land were welcoming pilgrims to have a nice sit-down Thanksgiving dinner. As early as this, men were expected to be a part of colonial militias. White, able-bodied, youngish men. In 1792, 2 different militia acts were passed by Congress. The first made it so that the federal government could draft from state militias in case of war or threats from indigenous people. I mean, you just had a banquet with them. Why would they be upset with you? Unless the second militia act clarified the first, naming 3 able-bodied white male citizens between 18 and 45 as required draftees. Now, why do you think these parameters were set? Let's use our thinking cap. It's the 1700s. This is realistically before the major waves of feminism took place. Drafts before this was also dependent on male-only soldiers. It's the 1700s. Feminists are not in charge of the government. And it's the 1700s. Feminism as a word did not even exist. Who are the only people with civic rights at this time? Able-bodied white men. Okay, and why is that? Because people of color, immigrants, women and disabled people were considered undesirable by the country and therefore unworthy of rights. All right, and specifically for, let's say, white women, what was their responsibility and their expectations at the time? The home front? Why is that? Because the patriarchy determines women to be more capable of caregiving and homekeeping than combat. So women weren't drafted, they were expected to work and raise the children at home while the men went and fought.